That was huge, that one.
Yeah, did that like fucking hurt your ears?
It did. It did. I'm going to have to go to the doctor's tomorrow.
Jesus. Yeah, got tinnitus. All right, what episode number is it?
25.
It is 25.
Quarter of a century.
Quarter of a century. 25 years of age. That's what can you do at 25?
The same things you can do at 21.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we're on the way to a midlife crisis.
We are definitely, this is like, we've just had a quarter life crisis. This is like, oh shit, you know,
Yeah.
I'm barreling towards 30. I need to figure out my life.
Yeah,
So
haven't got a girlfriend, just,
No.
you know, kind of drifting through life
yeah,
as a wagey.
we're not happy in our job. You know, it's like we don't know if we want to be doing this. And
Yeah, you just wake up at 7 a.m. and then, you know, get to bed at 8 at night. You just keep doing that. And then your weekends are just sleep. It's a good life.
yeah. So that's the podcast's life story right now. Is that what we're saying?
Yeah, it's just we don't know what to do with our lives.
Yeah.
The podcast is like just trying to find out what it's trying to do with its life.
It's like, yeah. Well, hopefully by 30, we've figured our shit out.
Yeah.
So that's our intention. That's our goal is in 5 episodes time, this podcast is going to be so much more mature.
Oh, yeah.
It's going to be, it knows what it is and, you know.
Well, yeah, we're going to be talking about adult things.
Yeah.
Like drinking IPAs and watching Adult Swim.
Right. Okay. So big deviation from the films then. So
Exactly.
welcome everyone to our podcast now, episode 25. This is a movie podcast, if you weren't aware by the intro. I'm your host, Lachlan Rodwell, and today I'm joined by my best friend, a pet eagle,
Yes.
Lucas Boreham.
What's his name? Eagly? Eagly. Yes. God, I love how they joked around about that. That was great.
Yeah.
That was good.
So if you can't tell, this week we're going to be talking about James Gunn's new TV show, Peacemaker. It's out on HBO Max in the United States. It's DC's first proper HBO Max show to try to rival that of Disney. And we're going to talk about it. But first, we have some news.
The news.
Now, this week, there's going to be a bit of backstory. Okay?
Okay. Here we go.
So, Joss Whedon, he's a director, writer.
All know and love.
He wrote and directed the first 2 Avengers movies, and he also directed the theatrical Justice League, as well as creating TV shows like Firefly and Buffy the Vampire Slayer. He's very famous. Now, post Justice League, a lot of the actors, including Ray Fisher, who plays Cyborg, and Gal Gadot, who plays Wonder Woman, came forward with allegations about his toxic behavior on set. Since then,
Another one.
bunch of people who have worked with him in the past have also come forward with his toxic behavior on set. But don't worry, because Joss Whedon has come through with a new interview, and he practically says he did everything that was alleged. This is his defense, and he's essentially saying it didn't happen quite like that, but yeah, it did happen. So he's not too intelligent, this man. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read through some of the allegations and his response to them. And we're just going to see how you feel.
See where it deviates a little bit.
Yes. So let's start, right? The first one is that Joss Whedon allegedly threatened Gal Gadot's career while working on Justice League. Right?
Lovely.
His response: I don't threaten people. Who does that? English is not her first language, and I tend to be annoyingly flowery in my speech. So then he says, so his implication is that Gal Gadot is misunderstanding what he says. And this is roughly what he says, is that she would have to tie his body to a railroad track before he would cut a scene she wanted removed. And what Whedon's saying is, oh no, Gal Gadot misunderstood that because he's saying that she thought she was being tied to the railroad track, and he's trying to misconstrue this whole thing. Anyway,
Yeah.
Gal Gadot's response was, I understood what he was saying perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
So what's just happened here is Joss Whedon has said, right? So, backstory, you're Gal Gadot.
Wow, I'm beautiful.
You're beautiful, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now you're in this movie that's been taken over and it's completely going in a new direction. And
Yes.
there's just like all of these shots of your ass. There's like a joke about the flash landing on your tits. And you're just like every shot or everything that's, was remotely good about your character is now flushed away and you're now an object, right?
That's
then
unfortunate.
confront the filmmaker about this. And
Which is fair play.
Fair enough, right? And then they say, you'd have to tie me to a railroad track and do it over my dead body.
Yeah.
Right?
And yeah, you'd be like, oh, okay.
Is that toxic behavior?
I think that is the textbook definition of toxic masculinity, if I'm not mistaken. They have an example written, and that's probably Joss Whedon. He's the example.
So now, do you think that Gal Gadot, English isn't her first language? Do you think she just misunderstood?
No, I think, I didn't even realize that English wasn't her first language. What's her nationality again? Is it?
I don't know. I have no idea.
But I mean, I think she speaks it perfectly, and she's in many roles where she's speaking it perfectly.
Yeah, I think that's the stupidest way to try to deny the allegation is by saying, "Oh, because English isn't her first language, she didn't know what was going on." Like, what a fucking idiot!
She's a AAA actor, if that's a thing. But she English is her first language, guys. Come on, it just doesn't make any sense.
I know it's ridiculous. Okay, let's move on to another one, right? So it then the story gets into the back and forth between Ray Fisher, who alleges like a lot of racism happened on set, and I'll skim over this one, but I just want to say the one thing he says that is just ridiculous is that Ray Fisher's character in the theatrical cut of the movie of Justice League has no story. It's just he's in the movie and that's it. In Zack Snyder's Justice League, he's the heart of the movie. He's the climax of the movie. Like he's one of the central players, like the main story.
He is,
right?
He is, yeah.
So when Ray Fisher's now come to the director and said, "Hey, why is my story being cut down?" Right? Yeah. And of course, you could argue, right? He's the only main black lead, right? His story's being cut down. What's happening there? And what Joss Whedon said was the reason his story was cut down was because it logically made no sense. Now, what's funny about this is that we've seen the story now. We've seen Zack Snyder's original intention. We know. Like, he's lying because it does make sense and it's the best part of the fucking movie.
Oh, that is hilarious that, because you're thinking, yes, Joss Whedon obviously saw, Zack Snyder's intentions with Ray Fisher's character, Cyborg, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
And I guess, he's a man that's thinking more to the general audience of okay, who do they want to see? They want to see Superman. They want to see Batman, Wonder Woman maybe, Flash, I guess. But it's mainly Batman and Superman that they want to see. Cyborg is a very unknown character. So he's thinking like that. But when I guess it really helps that we have this, Zack Snyder's cut because it just shows, we didn't have this insight before into this character and, how, detrimental he is to the story.
They do the full origin story of this character. And for an unknown character, that's kind of what you want in a way.
Exactly.
You want to see, I don't know this character. Let's see where they came from and, how they become a hero.
Similar to Thanos in Infinity War. But he's the villain.
Yeah, a lot of the Marvel movies are now picking out really obscure characters and they're working because they're spending the time to tell the story.
Exactly. And that's what people want. They want a new story. They know where Superman's come from for the
we don't
fifth
need
time,
that.
you know.
And same with Batman. Like, we've seen these characters a million times.
Yeah.
Right? We don't need it for them. But Cyborg and like even the Flash in the theatrical cut doesn't have much to do. And then in Zack Snyder's version, you see his relationship with his father, and you see him progress and become the Flash. So, and I mean, there is something to be said about the fact that, you know, the theatrical cut was mandated to be 2 hours long, right? So a lot of this 4-hour gigantic movie had to be cut down. But it is just interesting that what was chosen was some of the best parts.
Exactly. You know? No, you're right. But it doesn't warrant this toxic behavior to these characters, like to these not characters, to these people. At the end of the day, they're people, and they just want to, like. It's funny because both of them are just going to Joss Whedon and just being like, hey, like just asking a question, being like, hey, why are you doing this? Like, what's going on? Yeah, and he's just being like, fuck you, I earn too much, leave, basically. Yeah, so that's great. It's good times.
So let's move on to some of what he did during his TV years. So there was a woman. A woman on one of the shows he was working on said that Joss Whedon called her fat when she was pregnant. And his response was, I don't remember that. Most of my experiences were delightful and charming. She struggled sometimes with her lines, but nobody could hit a punchline harder than her, and just went on about complimenting her. But so
still, but you call a pregnant woman fat. That's like, and that's hell. That's hell for you. You go to hell.
And it wasn't like he accidentally did it. It was like he knew she was pregnant and was like, "You're fat."
Wow, way.
What? I know, like, what a guy.
That's like, again, textbook, like, to enter hell, you have to call a pregnant woman fat. Like, that is just...
I know.
This man, he just has no fucking filter.
Wait for this one, right? This one's probably one of the funniest ones, right? So a member of the Buffy... So he worked on Buffy the Vampire Slayer. Yeah. A member of the Buffy production team claimed that Whedon and one of the show's actors were essentially having sex in his office or something, right?
Okay, yeah.
And she and this member of the production team had heard that they were very clearly having sex. And so Joss Whedon, he admits to the affair, right? But he says the story seems false because he lived in terror that his affairs would be discovered. So his argument for, this did happen, but I don't think the story is true because I was really careful with my affairs because I was scared of getting found out. So he's...
What? Oh my God.
I know. He's admitting to sleeping with a coworker, at work, right? Which is sexual harassment.
Yes.
Right? Mm-hmm. And then to cover it up, he said, I don't believe... Like, I did do that, but I don't believe this person's random story because I'm really secretive about it.
It's like going to your friends, being like, hearing a story about like you and being like, oh, that did happen, but like that story's false, guys. Yeah. And then they just be like, but okay, so it still happened. Yeah, it's like,
so in conclusion, right? There's a lot more. This man is an awful man working in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And he got away with a lot for a long time. He directed 2 Avengers movies.
Yeah, that's huge.
I know. It's insane. And anyway, so he was doing this story. I believe, I just want to check who it was with. I think it was the New York Reporter or New York Magazine. It was New York Magazine. So he did this interview with New York Magazine as being his redemption, his comeback. He's going to explain himself, and everyone's going to love him again, right? And he just admits to everything he did wrong.
Yeah.
And does really bad excuses for it.
Mm-hmm. Well, I really want one of these, shitty like Hollywood directors, producers, whatever that like is just to just own up to it and have no excuse and be like, yeah, I did that. I'm sorry. GG's. Like, I'd appreciate that more than coming up with these terrible excuses like, oh, like English.
She doesn't speak
was not her first language. Yeah, she's she's a foreigner.
Yeah. What does she know?
Yeah.
What does she know?
What does she know about movies?
What does she know about being a woman? I mean,
yeah, I'm a man.
The movie. I know.
Yeah.
I can tell what a woman's experience is like.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, Joss Whedon, terrible guy.
Joss douchebag, man.
He's and it's just the weird thing about it as well is that he put himself out to be a feminist and like an ally of feminism, and for a long time Hollywood and the world kind of believed it and thought like he's this nerdy guy, but he's because he wrote like say Buffy the Vampire Slayer, right, is like quite a established female strong character, right, and he wrote that and directed a lot of the episodes in that, so he was portrayed as being, oh, this guy's good for female characters. And I don't know where it kind of went wrong along the way. Is probably ego, or he's probably egotistical, and because he said there's a quote. I don't know if it's in the same article. He said that, when he was younger, because he's not that good looking of a guy. He's like balding and fat, right?
GG's.
He said when he was younger, right, he's staring at all these pretty girls and he could never have them. So that when he became a famous director and suddenly all of the pretty girls he once couldn't have are now around him, he thought he'd regret it if he didn't start sleeping with them. And but
this man had a wife, right?
I believe so. I believe, like he cheated on his wife.
Yeah, see, that's like that's so scummy, mate. Fuck. I'd understand it if he was single.
He's had a wife from 1995 until 2016. And
okay.
2016 would have been around the time Justice League was filming.
Nice. Very good.
Yeah.
So he's probably going through some shit, but he probably deserved it.
Well, so his career's now over. I mean, it was already over to begin with, but now it's like, I mean, this was your redemption and you...
Bye.
Like, what were you doing?
Yeah, you had a chance. All these guys honestly deserve one chance. Like, you're given so much. I mean, he has done...
It does depend on the allegations. Like, in this case, a lot of them are about toxic behavior on set and how you are, in terms of your work ethic and how you work with colleagues and that. That is something that you can come back from and improve if you actually show growth. Yeah. Right? But his words here don't show anything. He's probably had a PR team run him through, like because he knows he's going to be asked about these allegations, right, in this interview. Yeah. And he was probably prepped on it. And then he just admits to everything and says, oh, she doesn't speak English. Like, it's ridiculous.
It's so silly. But yeah, no, I'd really love for one of these like Hollywood directors, producers, scumbags to just actually like admit that they're wrong and be like, hey, I fucked up. As we do as humans, we fuck up. Except if you kill someone, that's kind of like...
There are lines, there are lines.
There are lines. We have lines in the film industry.
A good example is James Gunn, who was fired from Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 following a series of bad jokes he made.
Yes, but that was, again, ages ago. Yeah. And those jokes back then were like funny.
Yeah. Well, maybe not necessarily funny. Like, I think a lot of them were bad jokes, but the line has moved, right, in terms of what is acceptable and what's not. And he successfully was able to come back from that because he has grown and he has shown that,
he's just a good person at heart, honestly. Like, he actually is a pure-hearted director and, like, talented producer and writer and so on and so forth. Again, he was writing those jokes because, they were fun. Well, they were bad jokes, but
everyone when they're young, right,
exactly,
wants to be an edgy comedian. It's like, oh, I'm going to see how far I can push it.
Exactly.
And you're just a retard. Oh.
And it is Twitter as well. And Twitter is like the big garbage bag of the internet where like people, log on and tweet and think their little tweet matters and stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, like, I don't understand why people like going back through James Gunn's history and be like, guys, look at this shit. This shit's fucked up. And then getting him fired. Like, when I heard about that, I was really mad. I was like...
Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
That was so disappointing because Guardians are like... it's like the best
so good.
franchise in the MCU because it's so unique and different.
Yeah.
But
exactly.
James Gunn has moved on to DC for a little bit.
Yeah.
I think he might stay with DC because, like, he's got one more Guardians movie, right?
Yeah.
And then realistically, he's free, but he might go back and do something else.
Mm-hmm.
But at DC, he's been given full creative freedom.
All the money. All the money he could want.
Whatever you want, James Gunn. And that's what he did. So first we get the Suicide Squad, which is, it was a box office flop, but it was the biggest DC movie on HBO Max. So that's something at least, right?
Yeah.
Because they were doing their simultaneous releases. And that movie was one of the best comic book movies ever made. It's incredible.
Yeah, it is great.
R-rated look at villains that's funny, action-packed, emotional. It's James Gunn. And now we've got a spin-off show from one of the characters of the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker, who's, of course, played by John Cena. Now, this is an interesting direction that Hollywood and entertainment has gone in, where because of the rise of streaming, shows have become bigger budgets, better actors, more talented people working on them, and they're seen as a higher quality art form than they used to be.
Yeah.
But it was always that you'd have a showrunner and then you'd have directors of each episode, right? And writers, right?
Yeah.
So the showrunner would ensure there was consistency amongst the episodes, but they didn't direct the episodes.
Yeah.
In the case of Peacemaker, James Gunn, right, an auteur filmmaker, is written all the episodes and has directed, I think, 5 out of the 8, or maybe 6 out of the 8.
Nice.
Right?
That's
And
what we want.
the first 3 are all directed by him. That's really different.
It is. It is a bit.
Imagine if Christopher Nolan had made a TV show and directed it. Like, it's strange.
It would blow my little mind.
Yeah. Now, I'm not saying James Gunn's on the level of Christopher Nolan, but he has a style.
I do know what you're getting at in that, like, it's semi-unconventional in a way, but, I mean, it's working, and, like, the episodes are great. And just, like, I want to say, from the beginning of the show, especially, like, the intro...
Yeah.
The intro is so great because it gives you a taste of, like, what kind of bullshittery you're gonna, explore.
Not prepared for that. The opening credits. Right?
Yeah.
The opening credits are insane. I'm sure everyone's seen it by now, but it's a dance number where all the characters are in their costumes and that. They're taking it 100% seriously. Yeah. Right? They're not mucking around.
They're like straight face, and they're just doing all the moves in unison, and it just is. It's great. It looks like a cartoon, where they have a cartoon intro, and like shit's going on out of context, and then all the characters that like would never actually be together are together. This is what this show makes it feel like. Is like, oh, here are all the characters that are being presented. They never do a dance number, or this silly thing, but it just is so great and defines the show very well.
What I love about it as well is it gives you an introduction to all the characters before you've seen them. So then you're looking out for them later in the series.
That's
you're
true.
Like, oh, who's this guy? I'm trying to remember his name. The Kung Fu guy in...
the green one? The little green one?
What's his name?
Judo Master. Judo
Master. Right? Yeah. So Judo Master's in the opening credits. He's right at the end. And you're like, who the fuck is that guy?
Who is that? He comes out of this little hatch. Yeah. And you're just like, what the fuck?
And every time I saw the opening credits and was like, who is that? I can't wait to meet him. And then you see him in the 3rd episode. And he's so funny. He's like... He's
hilarious.
He's this little Asian man. He's got like this really high-pitched voice, and he's kind of... he comes across very feminine and kind of a bit queer, and it's such an like funny character, and he's so good in the role.
Yeah, it's very interesting how like they're able to do this with like a fully costumed character. Like
Just
it's
obscure characters as well.
exactly. And then he's eating like flaming hot Cheetos for no reason whatsoever. Like this villain that's all in green. He looks like a ninja turtle, like a tiny ninja turtle, is just eating flaming hot Cheetos like in two scenes. And then he starts flicking them at Peacemaker. It's pretty good.
It's funny, right? So
it is.
Let's go through the other kind of main heroes or villains, right?
Yeah.
So before we get to Peacemaker himself, Vigilante, right?
Yes.
What I think Vigilante is one of my favorite characters ever in DC because
wow. Okay.
this I just love him. I love the fact that he's eager to be, and we'll get into spoilers, by the way. Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
He's so eager to be like a Batman type, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Oh my god.
But he's really smart about it. He's like, I've got this covering to cover my face, and I'm never showing anyone because then a police sketch is just of a red visor. And
exactly.
And he calls his car V-Mobile, but it's just a standard car and shit like that. Like, it's funny because he's so eager to be this superhero, but he's just actually a psychopath. And I think that's really... And he comes across as well, to me, as he's trying to be... I think James Gunn has created DC's version of Deadpool. He's not breaking the fourth wall, but he's like really, energetic and making these jokes. And
he's a believable character in our actual world because all he's doing is just dressing up. And like, I mean, I think the scene you first meet him is when they go to a Denny's or like a restaurant and he's just working there. Yeah, he's like... he's working there as a wait staff, and he sees Peacemaker. Yeah, and he goes outside and he like has a little fit because he's so excited.
Yeah,
and
he's
that was probably
fan of Peacemaker.
Oh, he's the biggest, and that's what is great for the character because the entire time like he's just sucking up to Peacemaker, but it doesn't feel like forced.
Yeah,
because it's weird because again you just understand immediately this guy is a psychopath.
Yeah, because to Vigilante, Peacemaker's everything he wants. He's this big tough guy that can do anything. He's gotten away with all this bad shit, and he's like, famous, even though it may be for all the wrong reasons. To Vigilante, he's like, this is my idol, right?
Yeah.
Because Vigilante is essentially Batman, except he has guns and kills people. Yes. Right? He is what his name is. He's a vigilante. Right?
Exactly.
And in a way, that's what Peacemaker is too. It's just on a Peacemaker's... When we learn in the show, he's got a higher budget,
He does,
and he's got the backing of a secret government team in that. So he's everything that Vigilante wants to be, and I think that is why it's like this respect, but this like this energy of like I want to go where he's going. I want to get there. I just love it.
It's like when you have in real life really really successful friends.
Yeah.
But, you used to know them, at school. So you text them and be like, hey, let's hang out. You just kind of want to clamber on to their success. Yeah. That's basically what he's doing. He's going to their, like, Peacemaker's ops, hiding in a bush and just, waiting for his moment. Like, I love in the third episode where, like, he just comes out and shoots everyone.
Yeah.
Because, again, like, this guy is basically just...
Exactly.
A vigilante. He just, loves guns, and that's essentially it.
What I think so interesting about Peacemaker himself in this show is that, in the Suicide Squad, most of the main characters, well, all of them really, all the ones that make it kind of towards the end, have journeys. They have character arcs, right? Peacemaker is the one character that doesn't. He stays bad. He doesn't get redeemed. He dies at the hand of Idris Elba's Bloodsport because of... He's a guy that he's like this authoritarian perspective of he believes so much in peace, right? That in the plot of the Suicide Squad, it's essentially the US government's involvement in this Project Starfish. Peacemaker thinks if that gets released to the world, that will do more damage than... So that the truth is irrelevant in this situation, it's better to keep the peace, and as a result, he'll kill Rick Flag, right? And so he doesn't ever turn good, and we see him, and he's more of a one-dimensional character. This show gets you to actually explore what it means to be this character, right? And how, his father is a worse version of him. Like, all of Peacemaker's ideals come from his father, but they're not as bad. So
Yeah.
Peacemaker may be more of a casual racist, right? In terms of, we see he has a funny discussion at the start with a guy who's mopping the floor who's like, you kill more minorities than white people, and then Peacemaker's like, oh well, I mean that's because they're committing more crimes and and it's he's a casual racist, right? But then his dad is a literal Nazi, right? And we see in prison, right? So we see that he's improving on where he came, right? Which is at least a step in the right direction.
It is,
and we see that he says his famous line in the Suicide Squad where he's like, I'd kill for peace. I'd kill, however many men, women, and children for peace. And then in this show, we see that tested, right? Will he actually kill children for peace? Even if they're these weird alien butterfly children, would he do it for peace? And we see he draws the line somewhere.
He does, yeah. And that was really good to see, honestly. Like, I was so surprised because I thought, like, he was... because you can see these are clearly alien children because they're just like eating soup through this gigantic tongue that's coming out of their face, and he's got a sniper on them, and he just kind of freezes up, and then I love how Vigilante just comes in and he's like, humming to himself as he's fucking just getting a multi-kill.
Very funny.
It's
very
great,
funny.
but like I did like that, how that one dimension had now been kind of shifted into multiple, I guess, because now we know, and like he's kind of a sad character.
He's such a sad character. Yeah. And I think what's really interesting about this show is, while looking at it, it's it's a traditional white male role, right?
Exactly.
But it's actually showing us a character that we haven't really seen before. That's a representation of the kind of right wing, Southern type of American.
That's
true. And them as, what their ideals are. And it's not necessarily trying to say that they're right or wrong. It's not trying to make a judgment. It's just trying to say that this is what this character believes in. He's all for guns and taking the law into his own hands. Yeah. And we see kind of the ramifications of that. And we see how his ideals impact his own life negatively. Like, we see him crying on the bed about Rick Flag, that this was one of his heroes, and he killed him, right? And the show, and I think where the show is going to go, is it's going to explore, right, when you're so set on your ideals, how do you suffer? And at what point does your own kind of moral compass outweigh your ideals?
Yeah.
I think that's really interesting. It's really smart, and I wasn't expecting it from this show.
No, I mean, neither was I, honestly. I was just expecting... I was expecting him just, like, more of that fucking 10-inch deagle, honestly. I was just expecting him to just, like, rock up and, shoot a bunch of people. But the action and the cinematography was... Not cinematography, sorry, choreography, like, of the fights, were actually quite good.
Let's talk about the one at the end of the first episode.
Yes,
right? So
that is amazing.
Peacemaker fucks an alien... Right, he's then singing into a dildo, thinking everything's great. Vibrator, I should say. Right, and this alien butterfly woman, then they start fighting, and he's butt naked in his little tidy whities, and it's just this insane choreographed fight where they're going through walls and shit. He's being flung all over the place. The thing that blew my fucking mind was that he was just getting slashed so much. And blood was going everywhere.
That I was so surprised because usually in movie scenes where there's one with a knife and one without a knife, the guy with the knife is just like you're stabbing into thin air. This time it's hitting at least 15 times, and you're seeing like John Cena just like fucking react and be like and you like feel it with every kind of like I don't know what the sound like a knife makes when it pierces skin, but you just you just hear it and you just kind of
it's and we don't see that because we don't get these hard R-rated superhero things or even action in general very often, especially for like a TV show like this. It's like typically the R-rated shows are something about like drugs or something like, Breaking Bad or whatever.
Exactly.
Or it might be like a Game of Thrones, but it's all very fantasy, right? In this case, it's just a person with a knife actually cutting into someone, right? And you just don't really see that, especially in the superhero space. And then the fight goes all the way outside, and we see that his helmet's not just a helmet; it can do stuff, right? We see with his dad that he gets given all these different versions of the helmet that do different things. This one fucking explodes this alien woman.
It has like it's a shockwave.
Yeah.
And I love when he's like, again, in his tidy whities on the floor, and he says like shockwave or something, and the helmet like glows. It looks sick. And it kind of just pushes everything away from him. So he's in a car park, and all these cars just get crushed.
Yeah.
The road around him just gets shattered. And this woman, or this alien woman, just gets like obliterated. Like literally, like her face is just now like a piece of paper, essentially. Yeah. Like it's all just confetti, her body has been turned into. And it was hilarious how he's just sitting there in the aftermath, like, what the fuck is this?
And it's just like, this is... So I think this show, to me, I don't know if you've seen any of James Gunn's earlier work. I've only seen one of his earlier movies. It's called Super. It's got Rainn Wilson. Have you heard of it? It's also got Elliot Page, formerly known as Ellen Page.
Wow. I'm just going to type that up real quick.
Type up Super James Gunn. Yeah. And it's this crazy fucking low-budget indie movie about this guy who wants to be a superhero. And it's kind of like...
Yes, I have seen it.
It's so messed up and gruesome and violent and fucked up, and it deals with a lot of heavy issues. And Peacemaker feels like a return to that for James Gunn. I think it's something he's always wanted to do on a bigger budget, but never really had the opportunity to, but now he does. And it's just something we don't get often, and it's very interesting to see. And I think, audiences are mature enough to get this type of content, and it's not going to rot our brains.
Exactly. Especially, I feel like what solidified the rating was in the third episode when you actually see a vagina, I can't remember her name, but she's like swiping through an iPad.
She's the daughter
of Amanda Wong. Yeah, which was great. Again, character world building was wonderful, and she's just a hilarious character. But yeah, she's like swiping through her iPad.
Yeah.
And you just see a vagina. And Peacemaker just loses his shit and just starts laughing hysterically. As did I was like,
what I found really funny is in an interview, James Gunn was saying that because John Cena would bring a lot of improvisation to the character and really made the character his own. And one of the things they talked about was James Gunn just assumed that this would be like a normal straight guy. And John Cena was like, no, this guy's going to be like super sexual and just fucks anything.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay. So then he's like a super sexual character, and I'm sure they'll explore it more if he's given these kind of quotes. But James Gunn kind of said that, he might be right-leaning in a lot of, ideals, but he's not in terms of sexuality, and he's okay with the fact that Amanda Waller's daughter is a lesbian, and he's like, he calls himself an ally, and he gets called, he says, just because you have a lesbian haircut, that doesn't make you an ally. And it's like, it's like this one area, he's this super sexual character. We see him fucking and he screams freedom. It's like, it's crazy and it's good.
It's great, honestly, because again, like we were talking about, this one-dimensional character that we first see, and then this TV show just explores it to the max. We now just understand this character on such a level that we never thought we would before.
And it's not particularly a character that anyone wanted to see continue, especially after the Suicide Squad, because he isn't redeemed and he does such horrible things in that movie. But now that we learn more about him, it's like, I want to see more. And this story is so interesting, and this character and his relationship with his father. It's all very well done. The action's great.
It is. Oh my! It's again these TV shows. I swear to you, just how there's just this intertwining story throughout all these episodes. With Peacemaker's dad, and then the cops, and then himself, and then obviously the bad guys the butterflies and stuff, and then obviously Amanda Wong's daughter. I love just all these intertwining perspectives that just get thrown about. You learn more and more about It's just such good quality. It's honestly good
It
quality
really is.
TV.
Bringing that up, what I think is interesting with the story as well was that at the end of the first episode, I was like, why did he sleep with? How did he get to the point where he was sleeping with the butterfly?
Yeah.
Right? Because it seemed like this was a chance encounter, and then how did
Yeah.
that happen? And then, so I had all these questions. I was like, this is kind of stupid. But then they answer it, and they say, you know, Peacemaker was fucking this woman. This woman happened to be a butterfly. They didn't know anything about each other. And then
Yeah.
she's reading his dossier
Yeah.
on butterflies
Yeah,
and
yeah.
whatever. And then she's like, oh, I'm going to kill this guy. So
Yeah.
then that's how it happens. And it's like, oh, that's great. And so it's like the story is really smart and they have actually thought of everything. The other part of the story that was so funny to me was John, what's his name? John Economos. John Economos?
Yeah. I think it's
Big guy played by Steve Agee. Economos.
Yeah.
Economos?
Economos.
John Economos. John Economos? I'm just going to call him Steve Agee, the big guy with the beard and the glasses. Oh,
Yeah.
we could call him Beard Dye or whatever.
Beard
Dyed
dye, yeah. Because apparently Peacemaker can instantly see that he's dyed his beard. And now that I've like kind of noticed it, I think
Oh, yeah. It's definitely like a running joke because he's probably
Yeah.
like, you know, probably got white hair or whatever. And he's dying. So probably, right? But anyway, Steve Agee's character, he, in the heat of the moment, right? Peacemaker's car is found on the scene of the crime. It needs to be, the license and registration needs to go to another person.
Yeah.
Who does he pick? He picks Peacemaker's father, which is the worst choice you can pick. Because firstly, it's like, you know, this is your teammate and you're picking his dad. Like, is he going to like that? And secondly, that's like one step away from Peacemaker. So the cops go to his dad's house and his dad's like, no, that's my son's. And then they're like, oh, it's the son. He's only saved by what happened? Oh, he's only saved by the fact that when Peacemaker ties this couple up, right, and then they get not blackmailed, they get
bribed.
They get bribed, right? They accidentally pick his dad, and then it's like these two pieces of evidence point to his dad, and his dad goes to prison. It's just like those chess pieces moving. It's fun. It's so funny.
It's so good. Yeah. And I do love the character of his dad. Like, just the hairstyle, like, first of all, brilliant. Like, it's just so, like, whack, but not too whack that you're just like, okay, it's going a bit overboard. And then just how he's just, he hates his son. He just absolutely hates his son.
We see a bonding moment between them where they're laughing over how Idris Elba's character, Bloodsport in the Suicide Squad, his dad would, you know, locked him in a cage full of rats or something like that.
Yeah, exactly.
And then the dad's just laughing and it's like, that's the funniest thing ever, right? Because this is an abusive father, right?
Yeah.
And then when he realizes that was the guy that shot Peacemaker, it's like all respect that was just gained is lost.
It's lost. Yeah, he's like, I think he says, oh, like, it'd be funny if that was the guy that shot you. And then Peacemaker just instantly goes silent. And then you're just like, well, that's
that
a rip.
was it.
Yeah. Oh, wow.
Yeah. What did you think about the dad having all of these secret Peacemaker weapons and that?
Again, I absolutely loved it because it just built Peacemaker's character. It fleshed it out even more to be like, okay, where did this character come from? Because again, he pulls up at his garage, or not in his garage, his fucking trailer, I guess, in this trailer park, and it's this shitty built American looking, like, you know, American flag.
It's like a giant trailer with the American flag on it.
Exactly. And like, it was hilarious, but I was like, well, where did he get these guns? Where did he get this helmet? Like, where did he get all this gear? You know, to become an actual, like, on the Suicide Squad. And then that, like, honestly, that just helped when he's like, okay, he actually has proper, like, power other than just being like a yoked person. If that makes sense. So I did like that, you know, there's multiple helmets, because then we could see him play with these helmets and, you know, turn out in the first episode that one of them was, like, honestly such great TV. So yeah, like, I think that was great.
Yeah. I think it helps to establish this character as being more than just some guy. You know, he actually it's now clear that, it's likely that his dad was the one who kind of forced him into this role
Yeah.
and gave him
Yeah.
his ideals and made him douchebag in Captain America, kind of that type of character.
Exactly.
And
yeah.
it helps flesh it out, and it's like, well, yeah, he has all these special gadgets, and it makes his character kind of cooler as well, I guess, in a if we're being kind of more blunt, just a guy in a metal helmet with a big gun can only last for so long. But if you
Yeah.
start fleshing it out more, and he's like got all these gadgets, it becomes more cool and super.
It does.
Superhero-y, comic booky.
Yeah, it does, definitely. But then you also ask like questions like, yeah, how was like Peacemaker treated as a kid, and like how was his dad, like, were his ideals more to do with his like father and what his father did, and then pass on down to him. And that's why, again, we're talking about like how he's just a sexual demon, how he just will like fuck anything. I think that's more to do with himself and his unless his father's ideals push back onto him.
Yeah.
Or down.
That's like him revolting against his dad in a way.
Exactly.
It's like his one thing that it's like you only ever do with like, then you do it in privacy, right? So
yeah,
like
you
your
don't
thing.
you don't talk about that kind of stuff with your father.
Yeah.
But yeah.
So
fucking box.
And I was thinking before, James Gunn was talking about the comic or the inspirations just in general, the inspirations for this TV show. The big one he brought up was that there was a Captain America TV series or a TV movie or something like ages ago, like 60s or 70s or like something like ages and ages ago. And James Gunn loved it as a kid. And then as he grew up, of course, rewatching it, he was like, this is awful. But what would a like fucked up version of this TV show be like? Because Peacemaker is, in essence, just like another end of the spectrum for Captain America. It's like the douchebag Captain America.
Yeah, I would say just the right-winged didn't actually live in World War II, was brought up today in today's world Captain America, I feel like.
And it is interesting. I don't know if have you seen Falcon and the Winter Soldier yet?
No, I still need to watch it.
You still need to watch it. There's a character on that. He's called John Walker, and he's the first person to replace Captain America. And he is very similar to Peacemaker in a lot of ways. Just, it's just the Disney version of it. It's the Disney Channel, it's
so it's kind of like, yes, America, freedom. And that's
They get pretty dark with it, but it's as dark as they get as dark as Disney is willing to go. Whereas DC, it's like, fucking let's go, baby.
Yeah,
let's just blow people up.
Yeah, that's literally like stab people.
Yeah.
And glorify that. But I do like the direction DC is going, and I just absolutely love that, because I do want them to set this standard of like, hey, if you're a talented director, like, and we like your ideals, we like where you can take things, then fucking go ahead.
Yeah, because they're at a point now where it's like they've fucked up the universe so badly that there's no point trying to establish some level of consistency.
Oh yeah.
Right? They should just go for it and say, directors, you do whatever you want. If you want it in this universe, you can do it in this universe. If you're like Matt Reeves and want to make your Batman movie outside of the universe, you can do that too, right? So it's now just, you directors, talented people, come to us and do whatever the fuck you want. Yeah. And that's interesting. It's interesting to watch.
And it is interesting to, just see happening. And like, it makes you happy.
Especially because like these big studios and these big streaming services and that, I think you need that point of difference. And for HBO Max, I think, going a more mature route compared to Disney Plus. I mean, having seen all of the Marvel shows and even some of the, the Star Wars shows too, they are all kind of fairly samey in terms of the way they feel.
Yes,
like the stories are completely different, but they feel like Marvel or Star Wars. They feel very samey.
I know exactly what you mean. Even with like, just like the fight scenes and stuff, you do see like just people being flung like really fucking hard into things, but like
nothing happened.
I mean, that man's probably dead. He's probably like, his spinal cord is snapped.
You would have loved the Hawkeye finale.
Really?
Because it's got the character Kingpin right? Do you know
Oh,
Kingpin
wow.
from the comics?
Yeah, yeah.
Played by the wonderful Vincent D'Onofrio. And he's just flinging people, like fucking yeeting them into like, it's like a shopping center, and just yeeting them miles away, right? In the end of the shopping center, isn't it?
Yeah.
And it's
But that's
like,
all they can do. That's all they can do. It's just like fling people so far, and that's it. Like, whereas DC's like, and HBO Max, because I mean, you need to think about HBO Max had, I think, Game of Thrones, Band of Brothers.
Yeah.
They like those kind of shows that, like, adults watch, where they're like, okay, we know what gore's like. We've seen like open wounds and shit like that. We know what happens inside of someone's body if they get like exploded. I don't know.
Yeah.
But like it's better to just now see that as an adult and be like, okay, that's what would happen if a really strong guy kicked through the chest of another really strong guy, instead of just a rag doll being flung at some shopping center.
And we have to make this clear as well. This is the first 3 episodes.
Yes, that is
gonna
so true.
So much further.
Yeah.
Right? James Gunn, everyone's been hyping up, everyone in the cast and the production team and that have been hyping up the finale as being like insane in terms of what happens.
No way. I'm so excited.
They've kept it so under wraps, and it was stuff like the actors, right? Who one of the actors, Steve Agee, he was saying that he was doing voiceover work. In one of the last days, he was working on the show. He's just doing some voiceover work, and he was like, "Oh, can you just go a bit forward in the scene?" And he's going in. It's episode 8, and they're saying, "No, you can't see it. You can't see anything.
Wow,
this is under wraps." So
holy hell!
And James Gunn said in a tweet, I think he was like, "I just filmed the thing that I never thought I'd ever be able to film," and it's like.
No way. What is going to happen?
So So watch out for Peacemaker. If you haven't seen it, we haven't really spoiled anything because it's only the first 3 episodes.
Yeah. Please start it. Like,
it's
honestly,
so good.
It's great.
We need to see more shows like this, and if this performs really well, then
it has.
Hollywood. Yeah, it has. I mean, Hollywood will take notice and say, okay, well, we started by taking actors from movies and starting to put them in TV shows. Well, what if we take directors from movies and give them TV shows? I mean, like, we're at this point now where TV and film are starting to intersect and they're becoming very similar. It's just one is shorter, one is longer.
Yeah,
but they're the same sort of thing now because of streaming.
Well, yeah, because people, at the end of the day, like, they don't want to see, like, again, you go to a movie, you want to see action, you want to see like a big fucking story. Whereas TV shows, you do enjoy just seeing characters do their own things. Like, in this Peacemaker TV show, you just, see them doing your mediocre things, just like being their characters. And that's what TV shows really drive, is just like the characters themselves, like what they do in this situation, which we all go through, like, just going to a diner or,
exactly. You get
taking
more
out the
of
trash.
Like slice of life kind of thing. You see more because they've got the room for it.
Exactly. And that's like what we have time for, especially when, like, we can just go on our laptops and, access these huge TV shows and just binge them.
And because James Gunn would have always made Peacemaker the way he's making it now if he had the time in the Suicide Squad, but he didn't.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So then the character becomes one-dimensional, and now we can flesh him out in this TV show. So it's genius.
It is.
It's genius.
It's the best thing I've ever fucking seen.
It's the best TV show I've seen in a while. Like, I'll say that much. Like, I can't think of anything I've seen recently, including like the Disney Plus shows, that's as memorable as this.
Yeah, I'm actually trying to think quite hard because, again, as always, you're looking for TV shows. I think Succession. I think is apparently quite good. You were saying was
quite good. Yeah.
Yeah, but like in this kind of segment of TV shows of, like, it's a super villain, or like just it's cartoony, comic book cartoon TV show. We just haven't had a TV show of this caliber, and I want to see more.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
So I think that's a fairly good place to wrap up this review of the first 3 episodes of Peacemaker.
Wrap that up or not? That's stirring it up.
That's cooking. Wrapping is
Yeah.
like, let's tie that into a bow.
Let's tie it in a wrap, like a
Yeah.
burrito.
Oh, that's another way of wrapping it up. We might come back in the like when we reach this, series finale.
I kind of want to, honestly.
Yeah,
like depending on where it goes, I'm gonna watch it anyway. But yeah,
yeah. So we'll see where this goes, and if there's something to talk about, which there probably will be, we'll come back and finish it off.
Yeah.
So thank you very much for watching.
Yeah.
This has been fantastic. If you listen / watch, I mean, we're on Apple and Spotify and YouTube and Google. We're at A Podcast Now, and at APod Now on social media platforms. And
Yes.
Next week,
Who knows?
who knows?
Who knows?
There have been a lot of movies that have come out. It's just about, can we be bothered to watch them?
Well, the new Kingsman is coming out. I definitely do want to. We could do a Kingsman episode, just like watch them all.
We could do a Kingsman episode on all of them.
Yeah. And just
If we manage to make it out to a theater, I reckon Kingsman's probably the best one to do. What was the other thing that was out? There was something else.
I was gonna see House of Gucci, I think, because I do want to.
Right.
Again, I do want to see if that film is any good, because like it has the vibes of like a Wolf of Wall Street.
It's like an Oscar bait movie.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. So I'm very interested to see if that actually.
Ghostbusters was the other one we potentially could go. I mean, we've been saying we could do these movies for a while. At some point, we'll probably cover them. It's just about whether it's on home video or in the theaters.
Yeah, that's true. And if you have any, any other movies you want us to look at or review or talk about or talk shit about or rip apart.
We've definitely missed movies from the past year. So if there's anything more recent, or if you want to throw it back, if you say, hey, guys, what are your thoughts on The Dark Knight?
Yeah.
Then we will do that, right?
Yeah.
So if leave your suggestions down below, then we'll see you next week.
See you next week, guys. Bye.